Ian, what's up, man? Thanks for joining me on the podcast today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. Happy to be here.
Looks like you had some changes to the studio since last week. Are you in the
Yeah.
same place that you were last week when we chatted?
No, no.
Oh,
So
okay.
last week I was actually in our storefront that we're building out. And I was just sitting in the back where we had like it's just construction, all kinds of stuff, and so just terrible sound and everything. So I found a building in town. I live in a really, really small town, and I found a building that had a soundproof room, believe
Oh,
it or not.
really?
Yeah,
Nice.
I looked on like Facebook because I was like, I don't know what the freak I'm gonna do because it's still like a week away. So anyway, found this room and rented it out and just went and grabbed a microphone from the closest store to us, and here we are.
Perfect. No, I'm really glad we could make this work. I think this has been one of the wilder uh times that I've had in scheduling. Like I think I missed a day, I was a day off or something, and then we ended up getting together and the sound quality wasn't great and I really wanted to make sure it was good for the guys. And then
Yep.
you messaged me yesterday, you're like, are we doing this? I'm like, I think it's tomorrow. So regardless,
Yeah.
we finally made it work, man.
Yeah, man. Yeah, and I'm happy to be here, dude. This is a long time coming. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you bet. You bet. Yeah, I'm really impressed with what you're doing. I think it shouldn't be as controversial as it is. I actually don't think it should be as rare as it is with regards to what you do either. And that is just talk about things that I think in society tend to be a bit taboo. Uh, and I think we're going to get into that, but I really do want to hear your story as to why you started talking about these cultural issues, these societal issues, as opposed to just kind of keeping your head down and going about with the status quo.
Yeah. Yeah, I've told the story a lot, so I'm gonna try and condense it because I knew you were gonna ask me. So back in 2020, it really started when the riots started. When all the riots started, that's really when I decided to start speaking up. Um, and I had a pretty decent influence. I had a pretty decent platform. I had, probably 15,000 followers or something like that, and I was pretty well known in my space, in the business space and sales space. But um, nothing like today. And what it came down to was I saw it for what it was, man. Like it when I saw the simultaneous riots going on in all these major cities and everything, and everybody just consuming the mainstream media and saying, oh my gosh, how is this possible? It's like, well, dude, I ran events for a really long time. So aside from my sales career, I actually used to run college age events for a really long time, and we'd pack massive buildings with like 4,000 kids in a college town, right? Organizing an event like that was a nightmare. I mean, the amount of things that it takes to organize an event like that, and the time that it takes. I mean, we would start planning that event, marketing it, putting everything together literally 4 or 5 months in advance, right? And so when I see all of this happening at the exact same time, I'm like, dude, there's no way that this isn't orchestrated at some level and in some way. And during
Maybe is there an element of social contagion with that though? I mean, sure, somebody's got to initiate things like this, but then some ideas just tend to catch on like wildfire and people participate. And I think a lot of the times they don't even know why they're participating.
For sure. And I think there was definitely an element of that. No doubt. I think the truth is always in the middle. That's what I like to say to people, right? When you swing too far to one side or the other, you get off course. But the truth is always in the middle. And to me, it was like it was a little bit of everything. But when I started to see, the videos of the bricks being stacked in front of buildings and
Yeah.
and all this, like all the things that didn't make a whole lot of sense, right? I just saw it for what it was. And I'm like, this is going to cause a massive divide in this country. And this is the beginning of how they divide us. This is the beginning, whether if you want to talk about two sides, whether it was orchestrated on purpose to divide us, which to be honest, that's what I believe. But there is that side of like, okay, it just happened. And then the people who are continually pushing that agenda to divide us just took advantage of a situation. The possibility as well, right? But either way, I was like, guys, what they're showing us on the news and what about this government according to movies and everything else is so far from the actual truth. And this is meant to divide us and create this insane like ideology in this country that if you're a different color than I am, or if you believe differently than I do, or if you're a different religion or whatever, that we just can't exist together. And it was just crazy to me, dude. And I think a big part of it also had to do with the fact that I'd become a father. This is right after I had my boy.
Mm.
And it was just different, man. Like, I've thought about this a few times. Like, if it was just me, if I hadn't been a father, would I have said anything? Like, would I have just kind of kept my head down? Because the truth is, people closest to me knew, that Ian was a closet conspiracy theorist, whatever you want to call it, right? Like, I always dove into that stuff. That was always like,
Yeah.
it was always just something entertaining to me, right? So people closest to me knew that, but the world didn't know that. And when I decided to blow the lid off that, I mean, even my wife was like, "You're an idiot. Like, you've been building this platform with what you have right now for so long, and you've worked so hard, and now you're just going to burn it to the ground." And I was like, I can't stay silent. Like, I know what's going on. I see this for what it is, and I know what's coming after this if we continue down this path. And I was like, I can't stay silent. And so sure enough, I turned my phone around and I started talking. And what I realized was far more people than I ever imagined had no idea. They had no clue about any of this stuff, about any of the, you call it now, it's called conspiracy theories, but there's that cliche meme going around right now that we're running out of them because they keep coming true, right?
Right. It's more of a
But
prediction at this point than it is
yeah, yeah,
conspiracy theory.
yeah, but dude, it blew my mind how many people had no idea about like any of that stuff. Like, everybody just had their heads in the sand. And the other thing that was really shocking to me was, even though I fully expected to burn my platform to the ground, it was the exact opposite. It actually flooded. I mean, hundreds and hundreds of DMs and tens of thousands of people in less than a week. And everybody was like, why is this happening? Tell us more about this, et cetera, et cetera. And so, I basically started to share truth as much as I could, or share like what I saw and what I believed was really happening. And I started creating these little highlight movies on my Instagram. I started like full stories where it got to the point where people would literally have like date night, and they would call it I Winster night, and they would watch these stories all the way through, and then share them like crazy, right? Um, and so that's kind of how things started. Like, I started speaking up about the divide that I saw happening in the country and the inconsistencies that I saw, and I tried to bring awareness. Really, that's I mean, like a lot of other people, honestly, in my same shoes, there's a lot of people like me right now that did the exact same thing. We just felt the need to raise awareness of what was really happening and try our best to create unity rather than divide that was being pushed so hard.
Yeah.
um
You
yeah,
say they, you said that is they are trying to divide us. When you say they,
yep.
I mean that's a really broad accusation, and I don't entirely disagree, but I think we need to really get to the root of who they is, because that's always kind of just left in the dark, and that's
Yeah.
why there's not a whole lot of credibility, because you hear people are like, yeah, they're trying to divide us. Who? Like tell us who exactly is trying to divide us, and then at least we can get to the root of that issue.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because the truth is I find myself saying that a lot. And while I do believe that there is a small group, probably, let's say this way, let's put it this way. I believe, and I've shared this multiple times, but never on your platform. So I think a lot of people will benefit from hearing this. I believe that, as cliche as it is, we are truly in a battle of good and evil right now. I think, I
I
think
agree
that
with that.
is, I think that is the truth. And I think that when it comes to, if you were to look at those sides, if you were to look at the good and the evil, right? Evil is not, you don't negotiate with evil. Like, it's just evil. That's it. And you stomp it out and you do the exact opposite and you go the opposite direction. Period. That's what you do with evil, right? But the good, if you consider the good is full of every type of person from every walk of life, every religion, every sex, every freaking demographic, every race, every color, right? But the one thing that I believe divides us when it comes to the good, and the reason why we can't seem to come together to fight the evil, is awareness of the evil and what the evil actually is and what its agenda is.
Right.
And the thing is, once people figure that out, no matter where they stand, no matter what side of the line they stand on, all of a sudden it's like, oh, so you're not my enemy, that's the enemy. And now we need to come together to fight that enemy. And so, you know, this kind of goes into why I started everything that I did. It got to a point where I realized that that's what was happening. And so when I say they, I think most of the time what I'm referring to is the evil influence that exists in this world. And whether that evil influence is in individuals because they've been consumed by it, or organizations, or the media, or the corporations and industries that stand to gain from other people's losses, or the tragedies that happen. I think that's what I refer to when I say they, because I don't think you really can't. I mean, I think some people have their idea of who they might be, like actual names and actual people, but it's obviously not productive and not constructive to name people because no one really knows at the end of the day, right? So I think they, when I say that, I just think they refers to the evil, and specifically the individuals that are consumed with that evil because of the greed and the need for money and power. And I always say this too, Ryan. It's like, dude, people like that are so driven to be powerful and to have a lot of money, they're not the kind of people that climb up the ladder and decide, oh, you know what, I'm going to go down one rung. They're the kind of people that are like, where's the next ladder? How do I keep going up? And the thing is, once
Right.
you have all the money and all the power and in the world, there's only one thing left, brother, and that's control. There's only one thing left that can satisfy that amount of greed and that amount of you know desire, which is, I have the money, I have the power, what can I control, right? And I think that is what we were faced with. I think the influence of evil, whether you're a Christian and you believe in the devil, or you just believe in evil energy, or whatever it is, I think that is consuming us as a society. And there are groups of people, and small ones, because I believe secrets are kept in small circles, unless you're talking about Santa Claus. But those groups, right? Those people, I believe, are out to control. And in order to control, you need to divide. You need to divide, and you need to weaken, and you need to create dependency. And I think that's what we're seeing in the country right now, especially in our country.
Yeah,
Um,
I think I tend to agree with the evil nature of it. The one thing I see is that evil, and when I say evil, I'm talking about satanic evil,
yeah,
uh,
yeah,
disguises itself in, yeah, I mean, let's not beat around the bush. Everybody's like, oh, evil. What the hell are you talking about? Like,
yeah, no, yeah,
and I'm not saying that, directing that at you. I just wish, and I'm trying to be more this way, is let's stop beating around the bush and let's actually explain what we believe. Like, let's stand
yeah,
on
yeah.
something, even if people think we're crazy. So I'll go ahead and say it's satanic evil, but
Hmm.
the way that it manifests itself is very sneaky. And I
Yep.
tend to believe the way that it manifests itself is through corrupt and clever opportunists.
Yeah,
And that doesn't seem satanic. It's not witches and warlocks doing secret blood rituals. It's corruption. It's being clever. It's people seeking power through opportunity. And then I also believe there's a large contingent of useful idiots who don't really
no,
believe necessarily that they're trying to control and all of this sort of thing, but they're being guided and instructed in ways that are perpetuating some overreach of power and authority in our government.
yeah. I think, going along with what you said, this is actually something I've talked about recently, and it's something I don't think a lot of people consider. If you consider the ultimate, let's just call it for what it is. What is the ultimate agenda of the devil, right? The ultimate agenda of the devil is to take away free agency. It's to literally bind people to him and to his desires and to his passions, because that's what he is. He's literally bound to his own passions and his own desires. He can never progress. And so the thing he wants the most is to make it so that people can't progress. And the way that you make it so people can't progress is you take away their freedom of choice. And what's so interesting, Ryan, is if you look at the direction of where things are going right now, and if you look at the different ideologies that are starting to become more prevalent in society, it seems to me, at least, like not only is freedom of choice being attacked, but the desire to have the freedom of choice is being attacked. Like,
Hmm.
people literally are begging for other people to make decisions for them, to like everybody wants it to be done for them, and nobody wants to actually do the work themselves. Nobody wants to have the ability to make the choice to do the work, or to just, to act, right? Everybody just wants to be acted upon. I shouldn't say everybody, that's a very blanket statement, but a large majority, I would say, of society is what I've observed. And it's interesting to me because, like I said, when you think about the agenda of the devil, taking away the ability for mankind to, the children of God, to make a choice, well, that disrupts God's plan, which is what I believe is allow his children to make choices and live good lives and try their best to be Christ-like. And that, I believe, is the plan of God, right? But his children can't progress if they can't make choices. And so when I look at those two dynamics, it makes sense to me that that's what the devil would be, or that's what the evil influence would be attacking the hardest, even though it's such a subtle thing. Like
It
most
has to
people
be
think
subtle.
of it has to be, right? But look at what's happening. Apathy, lack of accountability, work ethic, all of these things are what they're the building blocks of success. They're the building blocks of progression. And progression is the ultimate goal for God's children. That's at least what I believe. We cannot progress if we don't have the ability, or if we don't want the ability, to choose to progress. And that, at the end of the day, is slavery, which
Yeah.
is exactly what I believe the devil wants. He wants us to be slaves to our own sins and our own decisions and our own apathy, quite frankly.
Yeah, and I think, the other so there is that spiritual component, and that's what I believe too. But let's say there's a guy who's listening, and there are plenty who don't believe
And
in
I'm
God
trying,
and
yeah,
don't
yeah,
come
and
from
I'm
the
trying to
spiritual
be,
perspective.
yes,
It
yes, I'm
we
trying to
don't
be
need to
sensitive to that.
we don't need to be sensitive to it. We just need to be aware of it, right? It's just
Aware,
being,
yeah, better word.
because again, sensitivity, like I don't need to be sensitive to the fact that you believe something different than I do. I need to be aware of
Yeah,
it so I can have a conversation with you. And
true.
here's one thing that I'm aware of, or at least I would think, is that somebody who is non-religious, non-spiritual, let's say doesn't believe in God, you don't have to believe in God to know that the path that we tend to gravitate towards is not best for humanity and humankind at large. You can look at
Yeah,
the incredibly horrific atrocities against millions and millions of people perpetuated by people who are seeking control,
money
power,
and power. Yeah,
money. You don't have to be religious to see that. And
right.
and and so I hope wherever you stand on the spiritual aisle of things, you can see that this is not a good path to go. But it is interesting that when you talk about taking away freedom, it's usually cloaked as giving more freedom. And I can't
Yes,
think of a better place than transgenderism, because you have these people who are perpetuating these ideas that are damaging and destructive physically. Clearly, you're mutilating humans.
physically,
Uh,
mentally, emotionally, in every way.
Emotionally,
Yeah,
yeah, in all ways it's destructive to these people. And they're saying, well, we're giving more choice, more choice, more choice. And yet, when you speak out against it, or you say, I don't agree with that,
yeah.
then you are
A bigot or
dehumanized.
hateful,
You
racist.
are, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. And you're
yeah,
you're you're attacked and you're doxxed, and they go after sources of income, and they go
yep.
after family even, and it becomes a horrible situation. So you can't say on one hand we're inclusive and we believe in option and choice, but if you don't believe differently than, or if you believe differently than us, then that, except for that, we don't believe in that. It's kind of an interesting thing.
Yeah, I actually this is something I actually talked about a couple days ago. I I posted a video, and I don't know how to pronounce this guy's last name. I'm not even going to try, but the dude who is in charge of transportation, right?
Oh, Pete Buttigieg.
That guy. Yep.
You're right.
And I didn't even want to try and attempt it. But anyway, he they were talking about this Ohio disaster, and they were asking him a bunch of questions and everything. And of course, the one thing that he was focused on was, well, not the one thing, but the main things that it seemed like he was focused on was the inequality and the racism, and then all these other things. And so I caught a video of Matt Walsh talking about how he was elected to be in that position simply because he's a homosexual. and how that's a very well-known fact. And whether you like Matt Walsh or not, he made some really good points. And it just got me thinking, it's like, look, participation trophies have consequences. Okay. And there's no winners. There's only losers. And I posted this, and of course I had a few people, because, you know, I, believe it or not, I actually don't have just a straight up echo chamber with mine. I have people that still follow me and enjoy to have, you know, conversations about difference of opinion. But anyway, I had some people reach out and they were like, well, so are you saying, you know, they were like, are you attacking homosexuality and no, you know, in different ways? And I was like, I made a video and I was like, no, like I am not here to judge people or to tell them how to live their life. The truth is there's only one being that can ever make that call and actually judge us, and we will be judged, but it's not my place to do that, nor will I ever. And if, you know, you're free to live your life how you want to, as long as you're not causing harm to anybody, and as long as you're not going after the kids, because at the end of the day, that's what it comes down to. Leave the freaking kids out of it. But if you're an adult and you want to do whatever you want to do, if you want to call yourself a unicorn on Wednesday and a freaking leopard on Tuesday, I could care less, because that's your freedom. And just like I have to respect your freedom to do that, then I ask that you respect my freedom to want to carry a gun, right? Or believe in God, or whatever. Freedom is freedom. And I think what happens is people get off the tracks because they think that they can pick and choose how people use their own freedom. And something that I've said before is freedom doesn't end where religion begins. Even though it's something that I believe very, very strongly, right? People still have the freedom to make choices. That's the whole point. If they can't make choices, they can't make mistakes, they can't have success, they can't progress, they can't learn. And it's not our place to impede that. And I think this is where a lot of people, I feel like, this is the reason why I think a lot of people enjoy following me, is because I try to see both sides. And it's like both sides of the aisle. If you're talking about the right, the left, conservative, Republican, liberal, Democrat, et cetera, everybody has to be right. And when it comes to their freedoms or their choices, that's the right freedom, but this is not the right freedom. And it's like, no, that's not how it works, right? Once again, if you're not doing harm to somebody, like hurting someone, and if you're not going after the kids, right? If you're an adult and you want to do those things, like, who are we to tell them they can't? And I think
Well,
that's really
I think it is important that, and here's how I look. There still is right and wrong. You know, now somebody has the freedom to make choices, and they have the freedom to be wrong. You know, I tend to believe that my perspective is right because I try to be somewhat educated on it. I try to take my experiences. I realize it's not truth with a capital T, or even this my truth nonsense. It's my perception. It's my opinion. And I think it's right. If I didn't think it was right, I'd have a different opinion. Right. But I do believe there's a wrong way of living, and I fall into that at times. And I do believe there's a right way, but you do, yes, have the freedom generally, not in all cases, but generally have the freedom to decide, even if it is incorrect.
Right. And that's, and I would agree with that 100%. And I think this is just one of the examples of the issues that we have as a country. I mean, we are literally, like, we are tearing ourselves apart from the inside, and our enemies are winning without firing a single shot, because we can't get over the fact that, hey, you want to live your life like that? Cool. I want to live my life like this. Cool. We can still be friends. We can still communicate. We can still have we can still exist together. Right. But at the end of the day, there's such a strong agenda right now to create this idea that that's not okay, and that you're wrong and I'm right, and this is the way it has to be. And, you know, I think another thing that a lot of people forget is, dude, this country was founded on compromise. Like, the reason why we have the Bill of Rights and the freaking Constitution is because a bunch of dudes that, quite frankly, didn't agree on a whole lot. If you really want to dig into the truth of the founding fathers, they didn't agree on a whole lot, but they came together and they said, we do agree on one thing, and that is we don't want to be ruled. We want to be free. And so we have to get our crap together and figure out a way to compromise and create a system where we can make this happen.
Well, that's where I think that things are breaking down now is, and I wrote this down before you said that, because I wanted to touch on this, and you walked right into it, which was awesome. Because I think you're hitting on this next point I wanted to address, which is that in order to work together, we need to have some sort of common morals, principles, and I would even say honor code. We might see it differently. We might come about it differently, but if at the end of the day, we don't believe in the same morals, principles, and code of honor, I mean, what more are we going to agree upon? And that's why, we saw, as far as this country was founded, why we've seen a lot of the war that we have is because the morals were so, it was so vast between the way that each side viewed their morals and their principles, that it was inevitably be bound to happen, which is a breakup, whether it's the Civil War or the
Yep.
Revolutionary War. And I think what's happening now is, look, yeah, we can get along for sure, and we can work to compromise. But if there's some fundamental differences of values and principles and a code of honor, I'm not sure there's much getting along if you get to the root of it and it's that vast.
So I think, and I would agree, but I think that it also comes down to the reason why, like, for example, let's talk about the transgender issue, right? At the end of the day, if you knew somebody who was transgender and they were a super kind human being, and let's say they're a friend of yours, right? Um, are you going to constantly look at them differently just because of the way they're choosing to live their life? Probably not. Most people are probably not going to, despite what the media may say or despite what, what's being pushed right now. And I think that's the point is, you hear people say all the time, go out your front door and talk to your neighbor and you'll find out that everything they say on the news is a lie. And it's like, there's truth to that. And and my thing is, it's not so much that, I guess this is my opinion. It's not so much that, we don't all have the same morals as much as it is there's a clear agenda that is being shoved down our throats that we need to change our morals, that we need to change the way that we believe, that we need to change our code of conduct or our code of, or our, our code of honor or whatever. And I think that's the biggest issue. And it's like, if you look at how things are, sorry, 1 second, dude, I gotta plug my computer in. If you look at how things are with that transgender LGBTQ agenda, right? Let's say the roles are reversed, right? Let's say that those people who look at something like, for example, toxic masculinity, right? Being strong, living, eating healthy, working out, being a good father, traditional family values, all of that stuff. I would say that a lot of the people in that camp look at that as the exact way that we would look at things they're doing, right? I would say that's probably a safe assumption. What if that was being shoved down their throats? What if every time they got on Netflix, it was nothing but muscles and father and son and healthy eating? And which, by the way, this is absolutely asinine that this is the conversation right now, that this is a bad thing. But
I was going to say, I think that's actually what we should be doing.
And I agree.
We actually should be pushing that to people and helping them understand that traditional values is a better way of living for yourself and other people.
And I agree 100%, obviously. But my thing is, like, if that was the case, right, what all of those people I feel like would be doing the exact same thing. And it's the same rat wheel that we're in with every single issue that seems to exist in this country. And so my whole thing is like, is there a way to compromise? Is there a way to, because again, if you consider what I said in the beginning about good and evil, right? I truly believe that aside from, things like sexualizing children, aside from things like mutilating children, killing unborn children, I think other than those things, right? When it comes to just lifestyle choices that I may not agree with, it doesn't make that person a bad person. It still puts them in the good camp. But I think the biggest difference, or the one thing that still divides us, is the awareness of what really is evil, and what that true agenda is, because that agenda is against all of us. It's not just against some of us, it's against all of us. And I think, like you said, there's there's kind of a veil that's pulled over people's eyes right now where they can't see it because it's so subtle and it's so slow. And it kind of creeps up, right? Slowly they've put it into the media, slowly they've put it into mainstream, the like just nightly TV. I mean, you literally watch nightly TV and you have women that are basically stripping on a stage, and there's probably 4 or 5 year olds watching this program. Like the other night when we were watching the Super Bowl, like my kids were in the room, and this performance is on, and I'm like, they're humping the air. Like, I don't want my kids to see this. But we've gotten to a place as society where not only has it become acceptable, it's become like the norm, right? And I think that's the evil that I'm talking about. I think that's how you and I are on the same page as far as there is a clear evil and it is very apparent, but I think some people just aren't aware of it, either because they don't want to believe that that's the truth, or they're just so far down the road at this point that they can't see the difference between good and evil. Good is evil and evil is good.
Or they're
And
just too nice and they're too much of pacifists. I mean, I think this is
also
where
true.
compromise actually is a detriment. You know, there's some things that I'm not willing to compromise on, and I'll be vocal about it. And the problem is, I think one of the problems is that too many men are willing to compromise, and they are willing to stay silent, and they are willing to let things slide and let things go because it's quote unquote not that big a deal. And can you imagine if millions of men decided, no, you know what? This is the line right here. This is the line. And you can walk up to it. You can bump up against it. You can rub on it. But the minute you go over that line is where I get involved, and there's consequences for actions. And there's not enough strong, moral, capable, bold, successful, independent men like yourself. I would consider you one who's doing it. You know, you're actually putting your money where your mouth is. I try to be like that. That needs to happen more. Enough with the compromise, enough with the letting things go, and let's start making a stand and actually standing up against this with courage, strength, and conviction.
Yeah. No, it's well said. I think you're seeing more of that. I do agree with you that not enough are. The amount of blue checks in my views and in my likes and engagement that just never say a word but just continue to consume the content, and
right.
they'll send a fist bump. Thanks so much for doing this. It's like, bro, you
or
have
they'll send a private message.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. It's a DM, it's a private message, and they have, anywhere from 800,000 to 2 million. And it's like, every time I get that, I'm like, restrict. I don't even want to talk to you. Like,
I mean,
my thing.
what do these people worship at this point? You know, do they worship and they idolize their money and their notoriety and their fame and their accolades, or do they honor truth and
Well, and
righteousness and doing the right thing and having courage? Unfortunately, there's not a lot of people who do, it seems like.
No, I think it's definitely fear. These people, especially the people that I just mentioned, like these people with great influence that don't want to say anything. The reason why is because they obviously fear to lose their endorsements or their position or whatever. And it's like, what people don't understand, and I think this is what I've been saying from the beginning, and the main reason why I decided to start speaking up in the first place is like, if you don't speak up, you're gonna lose it anyway. If you don't start raising awareness of this stuff, it's not gonna matter. It's
Right.
literally not gonna matter, because eventually it's gonna be ripped from your hands. And everything that you're fighting so hard to keep is gonna be taken from you. And that is something that I think a lot of people, even during this whole pandemic thing, like all the people that were trying to raise awareness of what was going on, they were, I can't tell you how many times I've been called a racist or a bigot in the last 2 years, and I'm like, bro, I am the farthest from a freaking racist. But anyway, the point is, I think it's this. People don't understand that the ones that are speaking up and the ones that are actually standing up, it's not just for us. Like, sure, it's for me and my kids, definitely, because I want my kids to live in a safe world, and I want them to live in a world where they don't have to question whether or not they're a boy or a girl when they're 4 years old. And I want my kids to feel like, like they're safe. And that's obviously the biggest reason that I do what I do. But at the end of the day, too, it's also because, I truly care about people. And like, I want our country to be a thriving and successful and amazing country that offers opportunity for every single one of us. And that's why America is what it is. And I always get asked the question, like, did you serve? And it's no, I didn't. I've never been in the military. I have friends and family who are, but I've never personally served. But my conviction actually comes from the time that I spent a little over 2 years in Nicaragua. And let me tell you, man, that is what I believe gave me such a love and gratitude for the country that we live in. I mean, when you wake up every single day on a dirt floor in a sheet metal house, and you don't have a shower, but you have a 50-gallon barrel in the back that fills with rainwater, a bowl, and a giant piece of soap, and you don't know whether or not you're going to have electricity for half the day or you're going to have running water for half the day, it changes things. And
I
it makes
know.
you really start, it makes you really start to think, damn, dude, I have it good. And not only do I have it good, but um, I need to take advantage of how good I have it, and not only create opportunity for me and my family, but do it for as many people as possible. Um, and
There's not
that
enough people
is
that have suffered or struggled that way.
no, that is the key. I think that is the biggest key, because you have all these people that are constantly complaining about the way things are, like the whether they're celebrities or just people in general, younger people, whatever, they're constantly complaining, oh, this is so hard, like I have to work for 6 hours and I'm making $20 an hour, like boo hoo, right, poor me. They don't have even the faintest clue what it would be like to be dropped into a third world country for even 4 days, and every single one of them would be in a ball, crying their eyes out, begging for someone to come save them. And you're right, though. The reason why that it's so easy to be a victim, the reason why it's so easy to be so apathetic, and the reason why it's so easy to not be grateful for everything we have, is because they've never had it taken away from them. They've never experienced what it's like to not have those things. And I know there's people in the country that have grown up in hard circumstances. I'm one of them, you know. But let's be honest, guys. We don't live like a third world country. We don't have the situation that some of these people have. Um, we don't have, dude, I will never forget. There was an experience one time when I was down there where we would go eat with families, right? They would feed us while we were there. I was a missionary, by the way, and we would.
With the LDS church.
Yep, yep.
Got it. Okay.
And so I would go, or we would go and eat with these families, and they would feed us. Well, we went to this one family that offered to feed us that week, and I'm not making this up. Their house, they literally lived. There was 4 trees, and there was probably 100 plastic shopping bags that were tied together by the handles, and they were basically, that was their walls around the trees. And then their family
Shopping
sat in there.
bags.
Shopping bag, like plastic shopping
Wow.
bags. That was their wall. They didn't have a roof. It was just it was 4 trees and shopping bags. And then they had a Coleman camping stove, and that's what they cooked on. And that was in the middle of their dirt tree fort without a roof,
Wow.
right? And when we got there, they were cooking 2 hard-boiled eggs, and that was their food, right? And they had a family. It was a family of 5, by the way. So we sat down, and they gave me and the guy I was with, they call them companions. They gave us an entire hard-boiled egg, the entire thing. And then they ate the other one between the 5 of them. But the craziest thing was, as we were talking, I realized that they had left like a third of it, and they had wrapped it up and put it on the side. And later, I found out when I asked my companion, because he was more, well versed in the country and everything. I asked him, I said, why did they do that? He said, well, that was the rest of their food for the week.
The week.
The week. And it was Wednesday. Um, and dude, I'll never forget that. I will never, as long as I live, forget that experience, because those people were not suffering. I mean, they were suffering, but they weren't showing a sign of suffering. They were so happy and they were so grateful. They kept on saying, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And I'm like, what are you like, it blew my mind, Ryan. I will never forget it, man. It's like, it makes me emotional every time, because I'm just like, people have no clue how we have it, man. They don't have any idea what America actually provides and what opportunities we have as Americans, and how hard we should all be fighting for that every time it is questioned, or every single time it is challenged. Um,
Yeah,
and
I think
and
I
yeah,
think one of the challenges is we've created this incredible abundance and prosperity. And that has its own challenges and threats and struggle. And what it is that everybody has too much to lose. You've got a house, you've probably got 3 or 4 cars for 2 drivers. We have food storage. Like, we're not saving half an egg for the rest of the week. We have pantries and basements full of water and food store. I mean, just the level of abundance that we have. we don't want to sacrifice that. And
No.
sometimes I think we believe that rocking the boat puts that at risk, and it does. But also, so does not rocking the boat and just letting
Yeah.
things be the way they are, because somebody's always
Yeah.
going to be after what we have.
Yeah. And I also would just say, um, I think one of the biggest responsibilities that we have, and I say responsibility because it's responsibility, obligation, even as Americans, is to live the American dream, is to live like Americans. It's to show the world what is possible with this kind of opportunity, because it inspires others to build it and create it. And every single one of us should be doing everything we possibly can to be that example, to be that beacon, to be that lighthouse. And there's too many people that are willing to not only allow other people to do that, but they don't, they're just, there's so much apathy to greatness right now. And that's what this country provides. And it's not easy. It's not easy. Like, I think it's funny. I have people that'll literally attack me all the time because of my business. Oh, you're a grifter, this, that, blah, 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 whatever. And it's like, dude, if you only knew how much easier my life would be if I wasn't building this business, like
What
it
is
would
there?
actually,
What are they? I don't understand. What do they
just
take
because I'm
issues
not,
with?
well, so for example, like I'm not military, right? And so people who, it's so funny because anybody who is in the military, when they meet me, they're like, thank you so much for what you're doing. But people that aren't in the military, of course, they're going to say, oh, you're just taking advantage of,
Oh,
American people. That
you're not
you're
supposed to
just,
be patriotic because you
you're
didn't
not,
serve in the
yeah,
military.
exactly. And
Interesting.
that, yeah,
Okay.
exactly. And so that's just one example, right? But I get all kinds of people all the time. It's like anything else. You're going to get attacked if you're doing something great. And if you're not getting attacked,
Of
then you're not
course.
doing it right. But
Hmm.
but my thing is like, people have no clue what it takes to build and run a business in America. Like especially right now, especially with how things are right now with our economy. People just, they don't have the faintest idea. And to be honest, neither did I until I really got going with this. And I have taught myself everything along the way, right? But the amount of resiliency that it takes to build something like this, and when you have people come out of the woodworks and say, "Oh man, you have it so easy," it's like, bro, it's like, it's just lack of understanding, I think, and lack of, I don't know what's the word for it. People just want to be angry, dude. People just want to
Yeah, they
be
do.
angry, and they just, they want to create problems where there aren't problems, and that's one of the biggest issues that we have, and that's
Well,
that's what continues to send us down.
I think we end up lending these people too much credit. You were talking earlier about some of these people who might call you a racist or a homophobe or whatever. And, we tend to, as people who are not, you want to defend yourself against that, right?
Yeah.
No, I'm not a racist. Here's all my black friends, and that's really cringy for sure. But that's
Yeah.
what people say, right? Or I'm not a homophobe because, my cousin's gay. Like that's what people say. You know
Yeah.
what? That is an improper response to it. The proper response is either nothing or you're an idiot. I really don't care if you call me a racist. I really don't
Yeah.
care if you call me a homophobe. I really don't care if you think I'm like you said, a grifter, or you don't like my business model. I don't care. Your
Yeah.
opinion of me holds zero weight,
Yep.
zero relevancy, and zero credibility. And I just am no longer interested in engaging with somebody or trying to defend myself against false claims and accusations. It's ridiculous and it's a waste of my time.
Yep. And that right there is actually one of the most powerful statements that anyone can make. Like the minute that, because I think every single one of us we at some point we're in a place where we allow that to have a lot of influence over our life, whether
Yeah.
we allow it to get to us or whatever. But I think every single one of us, when we realize that the opinions of others doesn't matter even in the slightest, that's where I feel like we can actually start to unlock our true potential. And I say that because I personally am the one, I've experienced that. Like the minute that I stopped giving anybody any power over me as far as their opinions went, especially people that had no like significance in my life whatsoever, the minute that I realized that I was giving them too much power and I stopped, it changed everything. It not only changed the circles that I was in, but it changed the entire trajectory of my life. And if more people understood that, I believe that we would have a hell of a lot more successful entrepreneurs, a lot more people that were out just freaking crushing life, but we allow ourselves to get so caught up in the opinions of others that we forget the only real opinion that matters is our own. And I would say the people that are closest to us, our
Definitely.
kids, our wife, like those are
Yeah.
at the end of the day. And I've told people this all day, even some of my best friends, it's like, I don't really care what you think about me. What I care is what I think about myself, what my wife thinks about me, and what my kids think about me. At the end of the day, that's all I really care about. And there's power to that. There's real power to that, because the flip side, it encompasses and it engulfs everything in your life when you allow it to, especially people like us that have platforms, you know what I mean? Because we get that all the time. You get the internet trolls, right? And it's so easy, and I'm not innocent. It's so easy to bite, right? And the minute that we realize, like you said, that it doesn't matter. Like I anytime somebody comes at me, I always like to post that meme from, or the I forget what Thanos, he says, I don't even know who you are.
Right.
It's like,
Right.
it's the truth, man. Like, I don't even know who this person is. Why am I giving them any kind of power over me at all? Or any, not even say power. I would just say any time, you know?
Yeah, you're directing your resources towards something that doesn't matter. One of my
Yeah,
questions that I get quite often is, because I talk about some of the same things you do, and the implications on society as a whole if we continue down some of these paths. And one
yeah.
question that constantly gets brought up, and it's a good question, is what do we do about it specifically? And when they're asking that, they're asking what they as men need to do specifically to begin to turn the tide of these cultural battles that we see in different places. What are some of the things on a strategic or tactical level that men can do to begin to reverse some of the tides on these things?
So, man, and I get this question all the time too, because it's like, what can we really do? And, um, you know, Andy Frisella says this all the time. He says, excellence is the ultimate rebellion, right? And to just quote that and use that, like, that is the truth, man. The best thing that you can do, especially as a man right now, is put yourself in a position to be everything that that nowadays you're not supposed to be, right? Be strong, be healthy, be capable, be dangerous, be successful, be filthy rich, be everything that that it seems like is being attacked right now. That's truly what I believe. Like, find a way to put yourself in the physical, emotional, mental, financial, spiritual position to be an absolute juggernaut. Um, and that, like, that's what I'm doing every single day. I mean, it's a constant journey for sure, but like, chip away at that. And I think that that's the best thing we can do, because everybody wants to talk about, well, is there going to be a physical revolution? All the dudes out there with their freaking skull masks, but it's like, dude, we need a cultural revolution. It's like you talked about, Ryan. I agree with you 100%, dude. I think that the like eating healthy and being strong and being a good father and being a good provider, and women being good nurturers, and all these things that really are what it takes to have a very successful society, quite frankly. Those are the things that should be pushed. And if they're not going to push it, and what I mean by there, I mean like the mainstream media and the corporations that stand to gain from the opposite, then we as a people need to come together and decide enough is enough, and do it individually. One person at a time, one community at a time, one family at a time, one community at a time, one city at like it. It's got to come from us, but it's not going to happen with voting. That's just my belief. It's not going to happen with voting. And it's not going to happen with these traditional measures that everybody, talks about as far as the systems in place. It's going to happen when we actually get out there and do what it takes to become physically capable. When we learn how to fight, when we learn how to train, right? Or when we train, I should say. Um, when we put ourselves in a position to be what you stand for, protectors, providers, right? And presiders. And what I like to add to that is patriots. Because that's really what I think it's going to take for there to be a difference. And there just has to be enough men. And I'm not discounting women, but it's important that there's enough men that stand up and take their lives back and do those things, and start focusing on being the strong, capable provider that we should be, which is, again, this is why I love your show. This is why I've followed you for so long. because it really is the answer. It is the answer. The answer is that we as men take everything back collectively.
Sometimes it's
And
hard
yeah,
because it doesn't seem like it's enough. You know, a lot of guys are like, oh man, if I change, like me changing, that's going to change the world. Yeah, absolutely it is. You know, I've talked
yeah,
openly about my struggles with alcohol, and, you know, I had no problem explaining and sharing what other guys should do and how we could be better. And then I'm like, wait a second, I have my own problems,
hmm,
and I need to make sure I address those things first. And I'm realizing, of course, not realizing, I always knew this, but I'm actually putting into practice and action that that behavior is not going to help me become the man that I want to be.
right,
Being 40 pounds overweight is not behavior that's going to allow me to be able to protect and take care of my family.
right.
Not being able to understand how business or marketing or sales work is not going to help me grow a business that's going to help our family become financially independent, but in the meantime share a powerful message. There's little things, there's little skeletons that we all have in our closets that we might want to open up every once in a while and take a look at and get those skeletons out of the closet and become more capable. Then when you do that, you're more able to help your neighbor, help a friend do the same thing, help a brother, a father do the same thing. And if millions of us are doing this, it's going to spur on millions and millions of more to do it as well.
And you actually touched on something that's so important, man. This is actually something that I even focus on, you know, with my coach. So aside from my business, I also do some coaching. And what I focus on really, really heavily is it's what made the difference for me, which is figuring out what is holding me back. And I know that that's like cliche and that, well, yeah, okay, everybody says that. No, but there's more to it, because the truth is we all have we all have anchors, if you will, okay, that and they're formed by experiences that we have. We have traumatic experiences throughout our lives, whatever that may be, whether it's when we were 3 years old, you know, we witnessed something with our parents that just scarred us for life, or we had a bad breakup when we were 16 and it ingrained in our minds that I'll never be good enough unless I do X, Y, and Z. Whatever it is, these experiences that all of us have, which by the way, all of us have. I actually put this comment on your post today that you did because it's so important. The minute that you start realizing that everyone has skeletons in their closet and no one is bulletproof is the minute that you actually are willing to not only open up, but you can actually start to work on yourself.
Right.
Because all of, especially men, like we're so guarded, we're so it's, you know, like a lot of us don't want to be emotional. A lot of us don't want to open up about the vulnerabilities that we have, but it's like, dude, that's what makes men strong. And so what I focus on with my coaching group is like lift those anchors up, because what those experiences do is they literally, you put on glasses. Okay, so I'll give you an example. I'll use one of my own examples. When I was 16, my mom left me. Okay, she struggled with a lot of issues throughout her life. She's literally paranoid schizophrenic. I haven't talked to her for years and years and years, but when I was 16, she left. She didn't say a word. She just left. And at the time, I don't think I was old enough to really understand the impact that it was having on me. And I had my dad and I had my stepmom, and I was really close. And so it sounds terrible, but I want to say that as a 16-year-old, I was able to bounce back because I had dealt with a lot of things up to that point anyway. And so it didn't make a huge impact at that point in time. However, as I became an adult, when I was, you know, this is literally after I got married, and I decided I wanted to see a counselor because I felt like I had something that was just freaking dragging me down. And I was like, I got to figure out what this is. And I have to be strong enough to go and talk to somebody. And so I did. And that person helped me understand that that one experience became an anchor and created a literal lens that I was then seeing the world from, which was, I am not chosen. Like people aren't going to choose me. They're going to choose something else because I
Mm.
told myself subconsciously that my mom chose whatever it was that she left for, right? And dude, that affected my entire life up until the point that I sat down on that couch and figured that out. To the point where every relationship prior to my wife was destroyed because of that. To the point where I never actually went hard in business, or I was a salesman. I sold door to door for 6 years, right? I never went super hard. I was super talented, but I never did the extra work to be the best because of that one thing that I experienced. And the minute that I pulled that anchor up out of the sand, and the minute that I took those freaking glasses off for the first time, it was like, holy crap. This is why, like, this is why I have been where I have been. And now it's like, dude, all gas. Like, you know what I mean? Because you just realize, okay, it's completely false. And so I would say, I want to answer your question a little bit better, actually, when you said, what are some things that men can do? Number one, figure out what crap is hiding under the floorboards. I don't care if it means you got to go see a counselor. I don't care if it doesn't matter. Just figure it out, because I promise you it's there. And if you haven't figured it out yet, it's the reason, in my opinion, this isn't, fact, but my opinion is that is the reason why you are more than likely sitting where you're sitting right now thinking, I want more, I should have more. It's because you're not, it's your own damn fault. It's no one else's fault. And the minute that you pull those floorboards up and you realize what's going on is the minute you're going to say, oh, okay, that's why I'm here. The next thing is, on a physical level, the next thing is obviously work out and everything, right? But another thing that a lot of people don't like to talk about that's very taboo, I feel like, is the levels of testosterone right now with men. And I'm not just talking about like 30-year-olds. I'm talking about 25 and above, right? There is, I forget the exact study. It was, I'd have to pull it up, but it was like the testosterone levels in men has gone down like 40% since 2001 or something like that. And the amount of men that I have talked to and worked with where they have gone and gotten their blood work done and figured out where their test levels are, dude, it would blow your mind. I did the same thing. I had the test levels of a 65-year-old man, and I was 34.
Mine, I think, so I'm 41. My testosterone levels about a year ago were right around 250.
Dude,
just horribly, horribly low. And part of that was alcohol, and there's some, but being overweight, sedentary, that sort of thing. There's things you can do for sure.
But it's not just that, dude. It's the food we eat.
No,
it's the stress. It's all of the things that are being pushed on men nowadays, right? And the crazy thing is, you'll go into a normal doctor, and the doctor will say, if you have 300-400, like, oh, you're fine, you're normal. No, you're not. If it takes 2 energy drinks to get to 5 p.m. every day, you're not normal. That's not how men should be functioning, especially if you're a healthy man that works out and that lives an otherwise healthy lifestyle. Like, you should not be feeling like you can't get up and play with your kids at 7 o'clock at night, which is where I was. So that's the next thing, is I would say, go get your blood levels checked and figure out where the hell your test is, because I promise you it's going to make a massive difference. And then the other thing I would say is just train. Like, not enough men are training. And I'll be honest, I'm not innocent when it came to, 2 years ago, I wasn't training either. But this last year or so, I've really decided, okay, I'm going to train. Like, and I'm not going to just know how to shoot a gun. I'm going to know how to actually protect my family if someone breaks in my house. I'm going to get tactical, and I'm going to understand all the ins and outs about it. And that's something that is super important right now, because there's going to come a time when we need it. I'm just saying, I don't know when that is, but it's going to come. And so I would say that health, become dangerous, get tactical, train, lift. And the other thing I would just say is have some grace with yourself. Like, all of us are bombarded with all kinds of things, especially if you're an entrepreneur. And I'm just talking because I'm talking to myself, right? Every single one of us have to have more grace with ourselves and realize we can't do everything. And it's all about just those little wins every single day. It's about stacking those little wins. And I'm not just talking about business wins. If you make it home on time and you're able to hang out with your kids before they go to bed, that's a win. If you send a text to your wife and you tell her you love her and you tell her she's beautiful and you're grateful for her, that's a win. Get used to stacking nothing but wins. And that way, every time the losses come around, you're going to be able to break right through them. That's what creates real resiliency, in my opinion, is when you start to just view the world from, I'm winning. I'm always winning. Everything I do is a win. This is a win, right? The fact that I was able to put this together, that's a win. Not enough men are stacking their wins, and too many people are stacking the losses. And that
gives you, I was going to say, it also gives you faith in yourself. A lot of guys don't have faith in themselves. Like, you're talking about grace, which of course is crucial, but also have some faith. Maybe you're in the gutter right now. Maybe you're struggling with a divorce or a health scare or some financial struggles. bro, have some faith in yourself. You know, like
Absolutely.
you're 35 years old, you overcame some childhood trauma, you overcame a past bad relationship, you've always been able to put food on the table and a roof over your head, you've been strong, maybe you played sports. Like those are so many, like you said, wins that you should build upon. You did it before. Look where you are. Have some faith that you're going to get through whatever you are now, and then go put that faith to work.
That's right, dude. It I think someone asked me the other day what I think has made the biggest difference in my life, because those that have followed me for a long time, prior to all this, I had a career in sales. I was for 10 plus years, you know what I mean? So I've family members, friends, followers, whatever. I had somebody that reached out that's been kind of along that journey for now about 9 years. And they said, what is the biggest difference? Because literally in the last 2 or 3 years, you have made a complete 180. Like you're not who you used to be in any way, shape, or form. Um, and the answer was something that it kind of surprised me, honestly. But what I said was, it kind of goes back to what I said before about how I stopped caring what other people thought about me. But it was more than that. It was I stopped comparing or trying to compete with other people.
Mm.
I for most of my adult life, I was in a door-to-door sales industry. I knocked for 6 years, and then I was actually an executive, and I built the training platform and things like that. But dude, the amount of competitive um energy that existed in that industry, to the point where it was like you're just constantly trying to prove yourself. That's what the right word is. It's not even competing. It's I stopped trying to prove myself to anyone. I like I just realized I don't need to prove myself to anyone. Like all I need to do is prove to myself that I'm capable. And the thing is, I already know I am. I already
Mm.
know that I'm capable of doing whatever the hell I want to do, because I've done it my entire life. And I know this all sounds like, cliche and storybook and like coachy or whatever, but I'm telling you, there's a reason why people say these things that are successful. It's because you get to a point where you just realize that you're just like, like the talents and the skills and the abilities that I have been blessed with since birth, that I am able to, I shouldn't say so birth, since very young, whatever, right? That I've been able to develop and lean into and then create opportunity with. Those are the things that I will always have to lean back on. And if I just keep doing everything I've always done, I'm going to be wildly successful. And then people that are wildly successful are going to find their way into my circle, and it's going to be even better. And I'm telling you that all stems from the point where you stop trying to prove yourself to anyone. It just doesn't matter, man. Like
Yeah,
it, yeah. I would,
it's powerful. It's
yeah.
powerful. Well, brother, hey, tell the guys where to learn more about you personally, what you're doing, also
Yeah.
Patriot. And we're going to link it all up so the guys know where to go, but I'd love them to be able to
Cool.
connect with you.
Yeah, so I'll tell you a little bit about the company really quick. I run a company called Official Patriot Gear. If you guys have ever seen the distressed Patriot logo on people's t-shirts and stuff, that's us. Long story short, the mission's really simple. We're just trying to do our best to remind people that patriotism is not partisan, it is not exclusive. Um, it's simply, you love the country, you love the people, you want it to thrive, you want it to grow, you want it to be free, and you're willing to defend those things. I don't care what you are. That makes you a patriot. And going back to what we said before, I believe that is one of the biggest reasons why I've kind of dug my heels in there, is because when you talk about how to make the good aware of the evil, I think once we all realize that every single one of us, aside from a select few, want the best for our people and our country, and love the country that we live in, that patriotism actually has the ability to unite us. Look at 9/12, right? After 9/11, it didn't matter who you were standing next to. All that mattered was we're Americans, period. Right. So that's the company. That's kind of the message and the idea. If that resonates with you, go grab some gear. It's officialpatriotgear.com. We also have an Instagram, the official Patriot Gear. And then my personal Instagram is really where people know me from or follow me. It's Iwendtster. So it's IWENDTSTER. I do pretty much everything on there right now. We're starting to build out like YouTube and other platforms and things, but right now that's the primary place you'll find me. And then I also run my coaching group, the Free Collective. It just started this about 3 months ago. We have about 85 members. Jump in there if you want to. It's a different experience than you're going to get in other coaching groups. So
Right
Yeah,
on.
that's me in a nutshell, dude.
Excellent. Well, it's been good to get to know you. Your message has inspired me to be a little bit more vocal about the things I believe. And I think this is going to be good fuel for other men to do the same. Appreciate you, brother. Thanks for joining me.
Yeah, man. Thanks so much. I appreciate everything you do, dude.